All right, let's do something a little different today. We're going to step into a time machine, not just back to a different year, but really to a whole different world. We're going to see the city of San Diego, but through the eyes of a 12-year-old boy back in 1904.
So, to really get our heads around Lyle's world, we have to start with the scale. In 1904, the entire population of San Diego was just 40,000 people. I mean, think about that. That's smaller than a lot of college campuses are today. This wasn't just a city, it was this intimate, totally knowable community.
And because there were so few people, the world itself felt manageable. Lyle could literally walk to the edge of town in any direction in less than half an hour. It was a place where you knew the boundaries, you knew the shape of it. It was a city a young boy could actually get his arms around. And this is our explorer, Lyle Carringer. He's 12 years old, and from his family's house at 2105 30th Street, he was in the perfect spot to see a city that was right on the edge of a massive transformation. His whole world was basically a giant discovery waiting right outside his front door. So let's try to paint a picture of this world, okay? Imagine streets that aren't paved, They're just dusty dirt roads that turn to mud whenever it rains. And at night, you don't have bright electric lights, just the soft glow of gas lamps. And the sounds, what did it sound like? The constant clip-clop of horses, sharing the road with maybe the very first, very rare automobiles. This was the world Lyle lived in every single day. But Lyle's life wasn't all just unstructured wandering. I mean, like any 12-year-old, his days had a very clear, very disciplined rhythm. And that rhythm, it was all set by the bell at Sherman Elementary School. His school day was a world of structure. Seriously, it kicked off with patriotic songs, then straight into strict lessons, reading, writing, arithmetic. You had public recitation, where you'd have to stand up in front of everyone and prove you knew your stuff, and students practiced on these little slate boards because paper itself was actually a precious resource. It was a world of discipline and order, for sure.
And here's a simple little detail that shows you just how different life was. There was no school cafeteria. The main meal of the day, which they called dinner, was eaten at midday. So this meant Lyle probably walked the 20-some blocks all the way home to eat with his family before heading back for his afternoon classes.
But this is what matters most. For Lyle, that 3 p.m. bell wasn't the end of his day, not at all. It was the starting pistol for his real education. It was the beginning of his adventures.
So how did he kick off those adventures? Well, Lyle had a key that could unlock the entire city. A modern marvel that was basically his ticket to freedom.
I mean, the city was small, but it wasn't that small. So how in the world did a curious, a pretty slight 12-year-old boy manage to get around this sprawling landscape of canyons and harbors and new neighborhoods? He used the grid, not the street grid, the electric railway grid. You have to think of this as like the internet of 1904. It was this network that connected every single corner of his world and made it all accessible. Just look at this map of possibilities. For the price of a single fare, Lyle could ride north into the brand new developing area of Hillcrest, or he could head southeast to Logan Heights, or get dropped off right in the heart of the business district. He could even ride all the way to the ferry and cross over to Coronado. The whole city was open to him. And for 5 cents, the ride itself was an adventure. Can you imagine sitting in an open-sided car, the wind in your hair, just watching the city unfold around you? These electric trolleys were cutting-edge technology and zipping along at 10 to 12 miles per hour. To a boy who was used to walking or riding in a horse-drawn buggy, that would have felt thrillingly fast. So you put it all together. He's got hours of daylight after school, he's got a nickel in his pocket, and with that, Lyle turned the entire city of San Diego into his own personal playground. So maybe one day he might ride this streetcar downtown to the harbor. He'd see these incredible tall-masted sailing ships right next to modern steamships, he'd smell the fish and the salt air, and he could wander through the vibrant streets of the nearby Chinatown. On another day, he could explore what we now call Balboa Park. But you gotta remember, in 1904, it wasn't this manicured cultural center. It was a huge, wild expanse of mostly undeveloped canyons and mesas. I mean, a perfect wilderness for a boy's imagination to run wild. Or he could just ride through a neighborhood like Golden Hell and literally watch the city grow in real time. As these grand new Victorian homes were being built, it was a sign of the prosperity and just the optimism of the whole era. But it wasn't just about what he saw, It was about what he heard and what he smelled. Imagine the clang of that trolley bell, the constant rhythm of horse hooves on the dirt, the whistles from the trains and ships in the harbor, and the smells of sea salt and wood smoke. That was the true symphony of his city. And the only rule was to be home by dark. I mean, think about that. That simple expectation tells you everything about the freedom and the sense of safety of that era. There were no scheduled playdates, no organized sports, just hours of totally unstructured, self-directed exploration. And these afternoons, they weren't just idle fun. They were profoundly formative. They were actively shaping the man that Lyle Carringer was going to become. See, every time he figured out the streetcar map, or talked to a conductor, or found his way through a new neighborhood, he was building self-reliance. He was learning how the world actually worked by moving through it himself, not by being told about it in a classroom. And this is the ultimate outcome. Through these thousands of small discoveries day after day, Lyle was forging this unbreakable bond with his city. He wasn't just living in San Diego. He was learning its every street, every canyon, every single secret. And that foundation is what kept him there for his entire life. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? Without even knowing it, this curious 12-year-old boy was giving himself the deepest possible education in his hometown. He was preparing himself to witness its entire evolution from this small frontier town into the huge metropolis we know today. And that leaves us with a final thought. Lyle's world was the dusty streets of San Diego, and his key was a streetcar. What was your world? What were the fields, or the forests, or the city blocks, or the library aisles that you explored? And how did they end up shaping the person you are today?